Hey there, this month's fly swap is going to be a standard wet fly, a winged wet fly, not a soft tackle. And I'll basically show you the rundown on how to tie it in a specific style. The colors are up to you. This one I'll do in a blue wing olive color. I'm going to start with a size 16 hook so it's easier to see. Black 8/0 thread. Some of the other materials you'll need are some type of tailing material. Flank feathers are good for tailing and for wings on wet flies. Mallard quill for wings. Some type of softer hackle feather for a collar. And then some dubbing or whatever body material you'd like to use. Quill works well also. Basically, we'll just start the thread onto the hook, run it back halfway between the point and the barb, break off your excess. Take a little bit of mallard flank as some tailing. If you pull it up 90 degrees from the stem, it'll line up your tips. The length of the tail is about the size of the shank of the hook, so measure that off. Pinch it, bring it up to the side of the hook at a 45-degree angle, give it 1 wrap, 2 wraps, 3 wraps, and that should roll it over to the top of the hook. And then I like to throw 1 wrap underneath and in back of the tail to get it to stand up. And you can bring it forward a little ways and clip off the excess. Wrap forward to your tie-in point and then halfway back, and that'll level out your body. Throw a little bit of wax on your thread, and for this I'm going to use some dark bluing olive dubbing. Pinch off some dubbing and spin it on your thread. The nice part about wet flies is once you get the hang of it, they're fairly simple to tie, and they have great results, especially on our tailwaters, and I don't see too many people using them. And then from the halfway point with the dubbing spun on, come back to the tie-in point for your tail. Make sure your tail stays straight, and then forward. I'm going to throw just a little more dubbing on there. You want to leave some space up front to tie your wings in. Right about there is good. And then your next step is to tie in a collar. This is up to you. Some people will take, and I'll show you both ways to do it. You can take some softer saddle hackle, hen hackle, pinch it off and make a little bundle. Bring it underneath and do pinch and loop over the top. 2 wraps, bring your thread down, and then give it a little twist to make sure it's underneath, and that will give you a nice collar that goes down and covers your hook point. That's one way to do it. The way I prefer is to actually wrap the collar like you would on a soft tackle. So with that, you take a small hen hackle, wrap it in, you want to go easy with this. One or 1.5 wraps for a collar is plenty. lock it in with 2 or 3 wraps of thread in back of the point, 1 in front, and then push off your excess. Now when you cut a feather like this, you don't snip it because you'll take off some of the hackles that you want to stay on. You just make a V with your scissors, hold on to the hackle, and push it through. Notice you don't clip it. And then I'll draw those back. Bring the thread almost to the eye and then back again. And then there's 2 types of wings you could put on this. Well, what you have there is basically a soft hackle with a tail. Now, using flank feather, you do the same thing as you did for the tail. You pull it up, bigger clump, 90 degrees from the stem, line up the tips, and pop it off. And you'll notice the tips line up pretty well. With that, you can measure it. You want it just over the body. Pinch it off. And at this point, there's 2 ways you can do this. You can tie it in and then trim it, or you can trim it first, which I prefer. Make sure you keep about a 1/16 of an inch of your wing forward of your fingers. Stroke back your collar and then line up the edge of the wing with the back of the eye. Now you take and grab onto your thread with your fingers, bring it down the other side, do the same thing again, and then pull straight up. And you see what that does? That pinch and loop keeps it from rotating around the hook shank. Now you'll have just a little bit sticking out. If it comes over the eye just a bit, you can trim that off. And there you have a flank wing. Now to finish these, if you wanted to finish it with the flank wing, bring your thread right behind the eye of the hook and then walk it back into the butt end of the wing. That'll give you a nice small head that's a lot neater than if you were to walk it forward or wrap it forward. Now that's your flank wing. I'll take that off and I'll do a mallard quill wing. Now with a mallard quill wing, you have 2, a left and a right. Notice how the points go in different directions. You want to line them up like that so that your quill slip, the section of quill that you're going to cut off, touches at the top. And you'll notice, I hope you can see it on the video, that the quill has a dark shiny area and then a lighter area. You want to cut it just where they meet, just below into the shiny area. So line up your slips, get your tips right together perfect, and take a slip that's a little bit smaller than you'll think you need, because we always tend to grab too much. All right. Now there's a couple ways to do this. You can tie them on just like that, or you can, and that'll give you more of an up wing, or you can take your tips and you lay them on something. And line your points up like that, and that'll give you a downwing, like a caddis. For this one, we're going to use an upwing because it is imitating blue-wing olive mayfly. All right, in order to do that, sorry for the amount of time, you line up your tips so that they curve down towards the tail. Measure it out so that it comes right to the tail. Pinch it. Now I'm going to take and cut that 1/16 of an inch. Stroke back the collar a little bit. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to come up with our thread and grab it between our finger and thumb, come down the other side of the hook, come back up again and grab it. Now what that does is it places that thread you let it go, take a look. Everything's nice and straight. I'm going to come down the other side, hold it. Now with that, it slid forward just a tad, so I'm going to cut off the excess over the eye. Being careful not to catch my thread. Now I'll take the thread and come right up behind the eye and walk the thread back into the cut ends of the quill. And if you notice, that'll give you a nice tight little head without too much excess. Then we'll go ahead and finish the head. Now, I like to use black nail polish on the heads of my wet flies, so I'm going to go ahead and finish this. You can dab a little bit of clear on your thread before you finish, and then tie it off, and then you don't have to worry about the head finishing aspect of it. Finish, pinch it off, and cut your excess thread. I don't know if you can see this, but these are my brand new scissors, my brand new Dr. Slicks. I dropped them on the floor and bent the tips. Don't drop your scissors on the floor. All right. Now, little Sally Hance's hard as nails, extra extreme wear for those extra extreme fishing days. And then I'll just take a dab of that on a bodkin. And finish the head in Sally Hance's. Here we go, little blue wing olive. That'll catch fish all day long on the tailwaters. Actually been doing really well on the Watauga lately with small dark flies like this, swung quartering across stream and down with some men's in it. Pretty aggressive strikes. Hope that helps. Good luck with your wet flies, and we'll see you at the next meeting.